Welcome to a new episode of T3 Connects with. Tonight's guest is Steven, or as you know him, Hey Archer, or from Nerd Affiliated. That's the guest tonight, and he has been on the pod before when I was Overgrown 30 Gators podcast, but this one's a little bit different. Also, want to say thank you to Toy Depot in Whittier, California, for being the sponsor of this podcast. If you're in the Southern California area or you're visiting the Southern California area, go to Toy Depot in Whittier, shop around, and then tell them T3 sent me here, and they'll give you 10% off anything that you buy there. 10% on Fridays or Thursdays and Fridays. Sorry, Thursdays and Fridays. Toy Depot Whittier, 10% off all your purchases. So thank you to Toy Depot, Mike and Kevin. Appreciate you guys for sponsoring the pod and the No Show podcast. That podcast is on Saturdays, 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. Just depends. But we got all that out of the way. So the whole point of this podcast, and I have a whole slew of guests the rest of the week, except for Friday. So tomorrow is going to be Chris, the man collects. Wednesday will be Art G. Thursday will be Mike, AZ Toy Hunters Guild. So we're going to have a long week of every day at the same time, except for Thursday. That one's going to start a little later. But yeah, it should be a good time. And the whole point of these podcasts is to really dive into the guests, not just about toys and whatnot, but more about the guests. So should be a fun time. You guys watch Hey Archer every week, and you know he Steve's always got an agenda. He always has everything planned out, unlike me, but not really. I actually do have things planned out, so it should be a good time. And we'll have Steve here in a little bit. And we got Nerd Affiliated, so Steve's in the chat. So welcome in the chat. We have JJ. There we go. It's been a while, JJ. Hello, gentlemen. Good to see you both live and on air. T3 Night Live, yeah. And then we got Rex in the house. Good evening, everyone. Hello, Rex. I will have to have you on this new podcast. So I'll be reaching out, and probably JJ. We got what's going on. We got Roughshod. What's going on? Good evening. Appreciate it. We've got JJ saying, "Hey Rex, how are you, buddy?" So appreciate you guys being in the chat. This is what I'm going to tell you guys. So we're going to have this interview tonight, and then towards the end, probably the last 10 or 15 minutes of this podcast, if you have questions, please leave them until the last 10 minutes. So this should end around 8:30. So at like 8:20, put your questions in here, or maybe around 8:15, 8 o'clock, start putting them in there, and we'll go through them and we'll answer some. And we'll kind of go over, whatever you have to ask us in the chat. So we'll try to make this a little easier so we can have a conversation, and then we can answer questions at the end of the pod. So it should be a good time. Appreciate you guys being in here. So I planned on doing this every week, but work gets in the way. And last weekend I went to WonderCon. So it has been a long couple weeks. So that is the reason why I haven't been doing this. So this week we're making up for it with a whole week of people. And then the following week, I'm going to try to get more. So every week I'll have at least 4 or hopefully 5, one every day, basically. So yeah. Anyway, let's bring in Mr. Steven, Mr. Hey Archer. What up, buddy?
Whoa, what's up?
Good to see you. What's up? Good to see you.
I'm excited. We've not potted together in a long time.
We have not. You look very comfy right now.
It's, I thought we were done with winter up here in Massachusetts, and apparently not. It came back. So it's like 30-something degrees.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. I was going to say it's like that in California. It just started like pouring rain today, and I'm like, oh, cool. It was 70 degrees all weekend.
Yep. Yeah, no, for us, it's like, it'll be nice all week. And then all of a sudden the weekend shows up, rain. It's usually how it rolls.
Puts a damper on things, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So I told you before we did this that it was a little different than what I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you you're probably going to cry. No, I'm just kidding. You're not going to cry. No, we're going to get into some
You're gonna hurt
other
my emotions.
conversations, hurt your emotions. Yeah. We're going to get into other conversations. I mean, we'll probably talk about toys and stuff, but this is a little different. So, my first question for you tonight is tell me about your childhood as far as what was the very first toy, or I guess you could say toy, yeah, toy that you remember getting as a child and what kind of joy it brought to you?
Oof.
Hard
You
hitting
know,
question.
I've never thought of that question before. I mean, I can remember. I guess the two answers I'll give that came to my head right away. I'll give a toy that I remember having and a toy that I did not have. So the toy I did not have that I always wanted that I remember like coveting was the Ghostbusters Egon figure, the Fright feature figure that they ended up re-releasing it, and I picked that one up. But I didn't know what Ghostbusters was. I wasn't allowed to have it, or watch it, but I knew other people did, and I knew it was popular. And that figure, for some reason, just like the color scheme and everything, I was just like, oh, that's so cool. I want it. Could never get it. Um, a figure that I remember vividly loving was there was a Batman figure where it was Bruce Wayne and Batman, and the
Yes.
Batman or the Bruce Wayne head would go down into the torso, and then the cowl will go on top with the cape. And I feel like it was a red Batman suit for some reason, and I remember like using markers to make it black. But yeah, that's one of my like early ones I remember having off the top of my head. But I'm sure if I thought about, like, even as I was saying it, I could think of a couple other ones. But that's one
Right.
that like I remember maybe it was like my first like customizing job.
First customized job. So so now you're a lot older. Do you own that figure?
I do not actually.
Would you like
It's
to
not
own
a.
that figure?
Do you have it?
Nope. I can probably get it for you.
Oh yeah, I've seen it online. It's not one that like I hold such fond memory that like I'm like, oh man, I really need to get it. One of the few that I did have a fond memory of that I did pick up after having a little bit too much Basil Hayden on a stream was a Todd McFarlane Savage Dragon figure that I remember
Yeah.
having. It was my only Savage Dragon figure. I loved that cartoon when I was a kid, and being drunk on stream with you guys, I was like, oh, let me see how much is it on Mercari? Like, is it even on Mercari? And sure enough, it's one of those that like just kind of sits there, nobody buys it. So I got it for like $30 or something.
Well, heck yeah, man. Oh man, I missed those days of Image Comics when they first came out. Savage Dragon,
Yep.
one of my favorite comics that came out. It's funny, as I did not know it was still an ongoing series. I thought it kind of ended. Still going on. It's like 300 plus issues or something.
I actually bought an issue. I guess I'll get political early. I bought an issue in 2020. It was him on the cover with Biden and Kamala. And I was like,
Yes.
same thing. I was like, oh, I had no idea they still made Savage Dragon comic books. But I bought it somewhere downstairs. I don't think I even like read it. I was just like, oh, that's cool. So I bought it.
So did you buy it just because Biden and Harris were on it?
Yeah, I just thought it was like, like I remember I saw it at Comic-Con that it must have been 2021, or I must have seen it in 2020 online, and then 2021 must have been when I picked it up. And I couldn't even tell you where I bought it, but I just remember like seeing it, and I was like, that's cool. Like, I remember hearing like how schools were so. I mean, again, I'm not trying to do this so early, but I remember how different schools were back in 2016 through 20, where they were taking down like pictures of presidents, and they were like, all right, well,
Hmm.
we're gonna like run this game where we don't acknowledge, the president in schools anymore. So I just thought it was cool. It's like, oh, maybe this is like we're going back to, you can give your kid something with the president on it and not feel like ashamed of it. So
Right. No, I
for that
get you.
reason, I bought it. Along with, I also didn't know they still made Savage Dragon comic books. So
I mean,
yeah.
I think it's pretty cool, and got to go back all the way back to like the 40s, I guess, 30s.
Mhm.
Politics and comics have always been hand in hand. So,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I think people tend to forget when
Mhm.
they, not to get too political tonight, but when they say like the left's woke and everything, and I'm like, and you read comic books and do you not realize that Marvel, it was Ditko and Stan Lee were like overly woke, as they would say.
Mhm.
Like that's just the comic books are that way. DC was that way too. So it just kind of cracks me up
Yeah.
nowadays to see and hear people say that, and then they're saying Disney Marvel movies are too woke, TV
Mhm.
shows. I'm like, but you read the comics. Did you read the comics when they like in the back issues? Because that's what
Yeah.
X Men's about. It's about race.
Yeah.
Um, Spider-Man's about, him being a
A
loner, I
loner.
guess, and
Yep.
yeah. So it just kind of cracks me up that
I
we
talked about
have
it
people.
with Dre on his stream with Dave, where I was like, the issue is that sometimes companies take it too far and it's
Right.
almost like tokenized, and that's what ruins it.
Hmm. Yeah, the forced stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I get you. I'm totally with you. um, so leading back into the childhood question, so I'm gonna make you go back all the way back to little Steven into memory banks.
There you go.
So tell me a little bit more about like your upbringing, and then we'll get in kind of to your teenage years and into adulthood.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so upbringing was it was good. It was a very good one. I have no complaints. It was very religious though, as I kind of alluded to before.
Hmm.
So there were certain, talking about like nerd related things. There were certain things I could watch and things I couldn't watch. So like, you know, um Ghostbusters was not on the docket of things I'm allowed to watch. Which in hindsight too, I don't know why that was on the no fly zone or no fly list, because like, I could watch like a Christmas Carol, or I could watch other things that had like I could watch Casper, but I don't know why I couldn't watch Ghostbusters. Um, so it was very religious, and Sunday school every week, sometimes church multiple times a week. Um, and I think it just helped me to become a better person, or like in therapy, they were like, God isn't going to strike you down in any moment. So I don't know, maybe it helped growing up thinking God could strike me down at any moment. Like I don't know. Um, but that yeah, growing up that was very much it. And then as I got older, then that kind of started to phase out.
Okay. So at what point in your childhood that superheroes and stuff get introduced, or were you allowed to, I guess, read comic books then?
Mm, yeah. I don't remember what I was like. I can tell you my first, like I remember going to see Little Mermaid, or sorry, I remember I remember talking about Little Mermaid in preschool. Like that's like probably
Okay.
my earliest memory ever. Um or earliest like vivid memory. Ninja Turtles was my first movie that I remember going to see, and I remember the experience and all that. So my dad's actually a big nerd too. Like my dad still watches Marvel and DC, and he loves Star Trek. He actually still has a lot of he has a lot of my Star Trek toys from when I was a kid. So
Awesome.
so yeah, I was allowed to watch all of that. Comic books were never not allowed. I just wasn't a big reader. My mom was a teacher, so I think because she I what is it that my wife says I have? It's something where it's like I always need to like do the opposite of what you say. Like I just
Ah,
have to, if you say, "Hey, you need to do this," my brain's like I just have to do the opposite unless I can justify to myself a reason why I should do it. And my
ah,
mother, being a teacher, was like, "You need to read." and my dad loves to read. And I think because they were both trying to force me to read,
Hmm.
I was like, F it, I'm not reading. So I actually didn't read a lot of comic books. And in fact, I wasn't purchasing comic books regularly until I was probably like 18 or 19. That was like a 2-year run where I was like picking up trades a lot.
Okay.
But as a kid, it was always the cartoons. Like that's how I learned cartoons and movies. That's how I learned all my comic knowledge. And then over the years, people would just fact check me on stuff or be like, hey, check this out. Or, and then you eventually get the internet where you can just look up stuff. So I was never a big comic book reader. In the nerd affiliated family, that's Anthony. Anthony reads comics like
Yes.
daily. So he knows all that stuff. Anything comic related, he'll be, or if I'm like, oh, this is in the movie, it's probably gonna be this story, he'll be like, no, it's not. It's actually this other story. So Anthony's that guy.
So he's your encyclopedia for comics.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why he's on the payroll.
Dude. That's a good guy to have on payroll right there, man.
Yep.
I read comics when I was little. I got out of them when we stopped having a comic book store, and I think they went to $3.99, $2.99. I don't even remember. I know when they got to that point, I was like, "Yeah, I'm out. Too much."
Yeah.
But here I am collecting $25, $30, $80 figures now.
It's funny how life goes full circle like that, huh?
Yeah, definitely. It's okay. Childhood was good.
Mhm.
Brought up a certain way.
Mhm.
So you and I have very similar upbringings.
Mhm.
So you weren't allowed to watch Real Ghostbusters. I wasn't allowed to watch, in my presence of my grandmother, I wasn't allowed to watch or bring over any He-Man toys,
Oh, interesting.
superheroes.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what else. I think at that age, probably about that. G.I. Joe. So pretty much anything that I was into as a young child, when I'd go visit my grandma, I would bring toys, and I was told not to bring them over because they were part of the devil's plan. So yeah, I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
But obviously, like at home, I was able to play with whatever, and then my mom got into that routine because that's her mom telling her daughter, you should not let him read comic books. They're the devil. He needs to read the Bible.
Yep.
So it's kind of like the same thing. The polar, like, tell me to do something, I'm gonna do the opposite.
Yeah.
So same thing. So
Yeah.
similar upbringings in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Because we both have we're also both Hispanic, right?
yes.
Your family's Hispanic. So
Yeah.
like it's one of those where like there's always this religious overtone to things, and
Mhm.
certain things are like almost like too strict. And then there's other things that you learn as you get older that you're like, wait, that was like straight up sinning. like like that was bad. But because of
Yeah.
like the culture of like you don't question your elders, you don't question the man, you
Mhm.
don't like do all these things, they kind of like fly, under the radar per se.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as we get older, you kind of rebel, and into your teenage years, you kind of do that. Speaking of teenage years, let's talk about your teenage years. So, what was that like? As you're going out of your adolescence into teenage time. So, same thing, like still the same kind of like growing up the same way as you got older, or were you more rebellious? Were you saying "f the man" at that point?
I was afraid of this question because my life did not really change in my teenage years. uh, if anything, it got worse because so going into high school, I went to an all boy high school. My mom was like, "You're not going to a co-ed school because, well, first of all, you're going to Catholic school. Like you went to
Mhm.
Catholic school all throughout. So going into high school, you have to go to Catholic school, and you're not going to go to a co-ed school because I don't want you to be distracted." So I went to an all boys school, and in a way, it was worse because there's she was right in the sense that there's no one to impress. Like you're kind of free
Right.
to be yourself because you're not,
Mhm.
competition is like, maybe who's better at basketball or who's better at dominoes or something, but at the same time you're able to find your niche, and that's one of the things I kind of liked about being in an all boys school was like I could be a nerd and not be ashamed of it. And don't get me wrong, like people still made fun of you for being a nerd, but
Right.
the nerd group was bigger at times than like the jock group. So like getting into anime, getting into video games, getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, getting into Pokemon, all that stuff. Like, if there was something I was like curious about as far as like, oh, tell me about that nerddom. Like, I could do it without fear of like, oh, some girls gonna think I'm a loser. So,
Hmm.
in a way, it like was worse for me because then when I got to college and there was girls around, I was terrible at that. So I did that was my high school phase. But no, high school
Oh
was like
man.
pretty, I gotta say, I was a terrible student also. Like I'm not a good student. But as far as like nerd stuff, like I was able to let the nerd flag fly without fear of penalty.
Okay, so a little different for I guess me. I'm trying to think. I mean, I was really into art, so that's like kind of what distracted me, I guess.
Mm,
I'm not gonna say like wasn't into girls at that teenage time. It's just I think when you're a teenager, it's a very awkward time for a guy.
yeah, for sure.
You're growing up. You're either growing facial hair, you're not. Your voice changes, body changes, stuff like that. So obviously, like as you get older, you get into girls and whatever else they're into at that time. For me, I was in that nerd category. Like I was kind of a loner. Like I had friends, but I didn't get along with the jocks. I
Hmm.
didn't get along with like I guess the stoners.
Hmm.
Uh, I got along with like the skateboarders, and I got
Hmm.
along with the telecommunications, which would be IT, I guess now, like those type
Yep.
of people.
Yep.
And then obviously the art nerds and stuff. That's who I hung out with.
Hmm.
And liking comic books or anything like that, and that age was just like a sin. You weren't allowed to say you're
Hmm.
into comic books or like Spider-Man or anything like that because movies that we see now weren't like that back then.
Hmm.
And I'm dating myself because yes, I'm older. I'm old-ish, I guess. I'm only 45. Um, that was in like what the late 80s, early 90s,
Hmm.
basically.
Wait,
So
for high school?
yeah, because in high school, my first year of high school was 93. Yes, I'm old. So I was
Okay.
like
Yeah. 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 You're right.
turning 14, I think.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But then I also forget time. And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Like, so that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I was kind of like the nerd. I was like the movie guy because I worked at an
Mm,
independent video store, and then I always say like I got called up to the big leagues, which was Blockbuster. So like
mm,
everyone would be like, "Oh, dude, so you watch a lot of movies?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I was the movie guy. Everyone would ask me about movies and whatnot, and that's kind of like where the my passion for movies came was because my mom worked at this same video store, and then they sold it to a new owner, and then I got a job there at
mm.
I think underage. I was getting paid under the table. I was I
Yep.
think 13, 12 and a half. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time. So yeah, I was working under the table. So that I would just go in a few times a week, make some money, and obviously I would blow it. I would go buy comic books or um, pens and pencils for art or color
Mm,
pencils or whatever paper. So that's what I spent my money on. Oh, and obviously video games because video
mhm,
games back then were, I mean, not that they're not huge, probably bigger now than they were then. So
mhm,
video games too. So yeah, that was kind of like my growing up into my teen years, middle school into high school. So
mhm,
out of high school, now we're going to get into out of high school into college years and then adulthood. So what changed or did not change from childhood to middle school to high school into, or actually into high school, out of into college.
Yeah. Um, Also, I was thinking about it as you were explaining. I feel like in high school, I was still trying to not be the nerdiest. Like I
Mhm.
remember, so in my group of friends, we were into wrestling, we were into
Yeah.
video games, and we were into basketball. Like, that's what we were mainly into. And I remember going to, we had a gamers club that had
Okay.
started. So after school, you go there, and people would bring their consoles to school. Um, and I remember being like, "Oh, they're too nerdy for me." Like I do remember that. Um, I remember going to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament at this place in uh, I can't remember the name of that section of the Bronx, but I remember going to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and being like, "Oh, I'm not nerdy enough for this." Like I remember feeling that. So that was a thing. I do remember. I thought it was weird when people wanted to be like, or sorry, I thought it was weird when I'd run into like loner nerds in the sense that like they didn't know how to socialize. And I feel like
Mhm.
at times when I was at like GameStop or when I went to the gaming club or when I went to that tournament and I'd run into other nerds and they like couldn't communicate or they, not, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, you probably had this. But, I would see people, I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like you don't want to like interact with people.
Right.
So I did think that was weird as a kid. Now I also don't want to interact with people, so I get it, I guess. But um, so leave high school and I go to community college first. I didn't get into any of the schools I wanted to get into. And that was my first interaction with like, now there's girls in the mix of this. Cause
Mhm.
even when I was younger, the only time I would see girls really was at church. Cause like where I was in the Bronx, like it wasn't a lot of young people in the area.
Mm.
Um, I was always envious of like other kids who lived in other parts of the Bronx. So I was like, oh, there's like so many more things happening over there. Um,
Right.
so college was definitely that. And I remember I told my wife the story. I probably told everybody the story. I remember there was a girl in like the first class I was in, and now I'm picking up trades. Like now I'm getting into comic books. I moved to Manhattan. It was easier to get to a comic book store,
Right.
and I pick up the Thundercat series that was out at the time. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is like what happens like after the show. And I remember reading it, and this girl was like, oh, she's like, oh, I think I used to like watch that or something. And I was like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, so what's happening in this story is blah, 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 blah. And I just like went. And she was like, so I was like, oh, girls, got it. So um, so at that point, uh, the first 2 years of community college, I did find in my group, I found again nerds who wanted to be social.
Mhm.
First times I went to a concert, first time went to or first time I drank, like all that kind of stuff was happening in community college. And then I was very unfulfilled at community college. So I wanted to join the military and I could not get in because I was overweight. So I lost a bunch of weight. And then I almost got in. They realized I had ACL scars on my knees, and they were like,
Oh, wow.
we can't take you with those." And then just for time reference, this is post 9/11. So at that time, all of us '80s kids were like, "Oh, this is our GI Joe moment. They attacked our country. We're all signing up."
Right.
So I did not get in. But then a family friend was like, "Oh, there's this thing called Maritime, and you can go there, and I think you can do like the military, but like not. And then when you graduate, you could do it if you want to."
Hmm.
Um, so because my whole life I was in Catholic school, I was like, oh, I have to like wear a uniform every day and I have to like be groomed every day. Like that's for me, which ironically I'm all against now. But at the time, I was like, this is all I've known. So it
Right.
makes sense to do that. So
Hmm.
in going to Maritime, I now became almost like I became like too nerdy at times. Like going there, I was also a minority there. Like there was not a
Right.
lot of people of color at the school. Um, is my first experience like having rich kids as peers that never existed in my life.
Mm.
Um, where I'm like, oh, like for high school, you got a car, like that's crazy. Like I've never heard of that. Like that's happening. Things I saw on like CW. I'm like, oh, that's real life for some people. Like you have a beach house. Like who does that?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so college was my experience into that. And then of course you have the boom of the internet at that stage.
Right.
So I was able to still be nerdy, but then at times be nerdy like on my own and still communicate with like people from high school that I was nerdy with, but now it's all like
Right.
online. Like that's starting to be a
Yeah.
thing. So
Hmm.
um so yeah, that college was my high school for most people. It is my best comparison.
I can see that. Like I know a lot of guys that I hung out with in college had that same experience where
Hmm.
they're kind of like sheltered until they got to community college and they're just like,
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
like this is what the real world's like. I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And it can go either
yeah.
way.
So
Like there's a lot of kids like
right.
that where they go off the rails. Like they're
Oh yeah.
they're in AA in a year. They got a
Oh
kid
yeah.
in a year. So it could really go either way. So I'm kind of fortunate that I didn't have the opportunity to go too far off the deep end.
Well, yeah, that's also a good thing because I know like vast majority of my graduating class all had kids either in high school, like in our senior year, found out
Hmm.
they got their girlfriend pregnant, or literally like the year after we graduated, they were all pregnant, had kids, or were getting married. And I was just like, wow, I'm glad I did. I avoided all that
Hmm.
because I was like awkward as a teenager. Like said, I was just kind of like nerdy. It was kind of a loner. I kind of
Hmm.
did my own thing. And to this day, I'm not gonna say I'm nerdy, definitely nerdy, but I'm not really a loner. I tend to
Right.
keep to myself just because growing up the way I did, wouldn't say it was sheltered. It wasn't really sheltered. I was allowed to do things like my best friend lived down the street, used to play street football, street baseball, basketball until
Yeah.
the street lights went up, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So able to do that and go camping with him and his family and do stuff. I was able to do stuff like that. But when that time would come, like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, I gotta go home. I just was like, I always was craving to go and hang out with people. And as I grew up, I was like, you have different sets of friends, and then your friends become friends with other people.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I always like had best friends, and then they would go and become friends with other people, and I would just feel kind of like I was abandoned or like they would just
Yeah.
forget about me.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh, okay, so this is how it is, I guess, in the real world, that this is what
Hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
So over time, like my community was when I got my job at Blockbuster because we're
Mm.
all about the same age. My managers were obviously older, but we ended up hanging out with each other. You got to remember, Blockbuster was open till midnight every night,
Hmm.
7 days a week.
Hmm.
So either go home or we go, hey, you want to go do something? What do we do in this town? Well, we drive around. We call it the cruise. Just drive
Yep.
around.
Yeah.
Go park at Taco Bell,
Yep.
grab something to eat, and just sit out in the parking lot and eat and talk until
Hmm.
2, 3 in the morning. That's literally what we did
Hmm.
because there's really nothing to do in this town at that age. And I could have been like all these other people going out and drinking, underage drinking, going to
Hmm.
parties.
Hmm.
Never did that because I seen like friends get into that and then wreck cars or almost kill people. They go to jail, get into drugs. And it's just like, yeah, that's not the life for me. So I'm assuming that was kind of similar to like college for you, or I guess kids that were sheltered got into college and experienced like life. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
almost everybody experiences that at one point.
I mean, there's also something to, and the one thing I do feel bad about the current youth is they don't know a life without technology. When
Correct.
you know you was talking about driving around, like for us, it was like just walking around, like because at this point, when I start having like the friends group that we hang out all the time, it's high school and then it's into community college. Um, we didn't have cell phones. Eventually I got a pager, but it was just like, all right, let's yeah, I'll use anime for example. Like, oh, new Dragon Ball Z movie came out. Oh, like you like did you see it? Like, is it good? Yeah, yeah, yeah. My other friend got it. That's friend with this other kid. Oh, cool. Like this Saturday, like let's all meet up at like this person's house and watch the VHS. Like, all right, so
Yeah.
you guys go over there, you do that, you watch it, and it's like it blows your mind. You're like, whoa, this is so crazy. But then you would have those moments where you're like, all right, Saturday, like are you doing anything? Are you doing anything? Are you doing anything? No. All right, let's all like take the train. We're gonna go to Chinatown and pool our money together to see if there's a new movie that came out that we don't know about. So we're
Right.
all taking the train and again, no cell phones, no pagers, no like, oh, I'll meet you here, and call me when you're there. Like you're just like, all right, be here this time, and I assume you'll be at this train car. Like,
Yeah.
and you just kind of explore. Like you're exploring
Right.
without directions. You're like you find out about this like cool anime spot with toys because like you overheard somebody talk about it at the arcade and you're like, oh, let's go see if this place is real. Like you just get to like live. And nowadays things are so accessible that like you don't like have to. Like whatever you
Right.
want, just on your phone. And
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and even now, like I'm my wife and I moved to this town in October, and like exploring's been very minimal because I just don't have to. Everything I want's on my phone. And I kind of miss that. Just like, oh, let's just go see what's out there, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like going back to like teenage years. Yeah, we rode our bikes. Like we rode our bikes everywhere
Hmm.
because in the summer, like our parents worked, so like they couldn't take us places. And the same thing, like we'd all kind of like back then actually get on a phone, not text. We didn't have technology then. Get
Yep.
on a phone, be like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Or even
Yeah.
at school, like, hey, you guys want to meet up? Do you guys want to go to the comic book store? Or do you already want
Yeah.
to go see this movie?
Yeah.
Literally the same thing that you just said. Like that's what we did.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I know back then there's a whole group of us that watched WWF back then.
Hmm.
So we like, oh, dude, so and so is gonna pay for the parents are gonna pay for the pay per view. Do you want to come? Oh heck yeah! It's a $2. Like all you have to pay is $2. Okay, and bring your own snacks if you want to. And that's
Yeah.
really what it was
Yeah.
like.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
right. Like you're right. Like the kids nowadays, like my son, daughter, 16, 14, everything's on the internet. His communication is through trying to think here, Fortnite,
Hmm.
Overwatch, Marvel
Hmm.
Rivals. My son or my daughter's just through a cell phone. That's literally it. Same thing.
Yeah. It's crazy, but that's every generation, right? Every generation is like,
Yeah.
oh, the current generation is not able to live because of blank, But
Right.
it's one of those that I think we are of that generation of like you can just chill, like you just cruise on a bike, cruise on
Hmm.
on roller skates, and nobody knew where you were, and all that mattered was are you home before the lights come on?
Yep. Exactly. My parents was just make sure you call us when you're there, call us
Hmm.
if you're leaving, and call us when you're on your way home. That was
Hmm.
literally it. Or they
Hmm.
would pick me up
Hmm.
until I got to the age where I was able to drive everywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. It's funny because speaking of like today's generation, like I said, my son's 16. Him and his friends went and seen. So 20 of them took up half of a movie theater.
Wow.
I don't even for Minecraft yesterday.
Hmm.
So and then tonight we were talking. He's like, "Yeah, so my friends and I all decided and agreed that we need to go do stuff more often." And I was like, "It's taking you this long to realize that?" I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Dude." we tell them all the time, like, oh, this is what we were able to do when we were kids. We'd go to the movies, we'd do this, that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This generation, they're just not like that. And
No.
it's just funny that he said that tonight. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, you guys should go do stuff. Maybe like plan a movie once a month or every other week, whatever you want to see. If it's rated R, obviously one of us has to go with you, but I'm not complaining. I mean, I love movies.
It's funny. I was staring at one of your posters there, the Punisher poster, right?
Mhm.
That's what you have up there with Dolph Lundgren.
Yep.
And one of the first movies I saw with nudity was my friend was like, he was like, oh, actually, Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you got to, yeah. He was like, you got to see this Brandon Lee movie because he was every group at that time, like again, rolling it with in the minority group, you always had like the one random kid that was into like anime or martial arts movies.
Mhm.
You had the one kid that was into like metal. You had the one kid that was just really good at basketball for no reason. But the one kid that was into like the martial arts, he was always about the Bruce Lee movies and all of that. And he was like, you gotta, like Showdown Low Tokyo, like best movie ever. And I was like, yo, let me borrow that. So I borrowed it. And I remember like when boobs were on the screen, I was just like, and I was like, oh, like my parents are gonna kill me. I was like, oh my God. Like I have to like, when I go to church on Sunday, I have to like pray for forgiveness that like that happens.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true because yeah, even in like my friend group, I was the guy that grew up watching martial arts movies because my uncle,
Yeah.
he's a 10th degree black belt. Like he's the top
Mm-hmm.
level you could be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what I grew up on Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And then, years later, I didn't know that Brandon Lee was his son until I watched Showdown Low Tokyo.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, that's Bruce Lee's son. And I was like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
what? He doesn't look like him, but okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like my fascination with Brandon Lee came from watching his dad when I was growing up, all the martial arts movies. So yeah, that's kind of funny that was that your first time seeing boobs? Was that movie?
It may have been.
Yeah.
It may have been. Outside of like, it's funny. I remember these kids, some kids, I don't even remember who it was, but they were one of the early kids that had internet. And they printed out like some explicit photos. And I remember it getting passed around class and being like, whoa, like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. Like, this is so terrible. And then I remember like one of the teachers, this was high school, I think at this point. One of the teachers was like, what's getting passed around? Like, and was like kind of looking around. And somebody actually like took the papers, folded them up, and lit them on fire and put them at a desk.
Oh, wow.
And eventually, of course, the teacher realized there was smoke coming out of her desk.
Right.
And we were all shocked that like it created smoke and like the teacher found it. Like, so I don't know, maybe that was the first time I saw something more explicit than that, but that movie may have been the catalyst. Yeah.
Well, welcome to adulthood, I guess. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Great movie, by the way. Boobs aside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've watched it, a few times. Well, I should say more than a few times over the years, and I just watched it. I think last year, or 2023, for the first time in like probably 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh yeah, this movie does not hold up, but it's so bad. It's like cheesy. It's still good. Like those 80s movies, a lot of them are just so bad they're good.
Wait, you don't think Showdown Low Tokyo holds up?
No, not like. I think just because as adult to adult, friend to friend, we have grown up into a whole different world of how action is perceived now. Because now, like back then, you gotta remember, like it was all practical effects. We didn't have they had CGI, but it wasn't
It
until
wasn't what
T2 when it became.
yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't until
right.
T2 when it was like mind blowing. You're like, oh
Yeah,
wow, this is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't really feel like it holds up.
You know,
Yeah, I don't think it holds
I
up.
don't in a way, I don't disagree. I'll tell you why I'm on both sides. I think that to me, if you were like, give me your top 5 buddy cop movies, like that's gonna be my top 5 buddy cop movie.
Oh,
I
for
just
sure.
it's I just think that the dynamic between the two of them is great, and the paradox that the better martial artist is the white guy is just hilarious. But it's funny because I think it's one of those movies where the third act is like one of the worst parts of the movie. Like I feel
Yes.
like the third act is like kind of pointless. Like I don't care. But like
Yeah.
by the time we pass the fight scene at the bathhouse,
Mhm.
like I'm good turning off the movie. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm good.
Right.
So you're probably right. That's where I'm like, I agree and disagree.
Yeah. I mean, regardless, like I love Brandon Lee, so
Yeah.
it's not my favorite movie of his, obviously. I mean, it's obvious what movie that is. Um,
That
but
will
yeah, that
forever
is
we will forever disagree on, but we're still friends.
yes. Yes, we'll forever disagree on. But
Yeah.
hey, you're not the only one who doesn't like that movie, so it's okay. Like I don't shame anyone for not liking that movie. I mean, shame on you for saying that live right now. No, I'm kidding.
I think well, here's the thing too. I think you and I talked about it via text, but like I feel like that movie, and I might have done a poll on it or something, but I feel like that movie is very tied to what was your musical taste at in that moment in time. Like
See that.
the kid, the kids that I knew that grabbed onto that movie, like it's the greatest movie of all time, were into the music and that
Mhm.
style of music at that time. And I wasn't ready for that. Like that, like
Ah,
the only way I could ever like describe it, even though it's not accurate, is like industrial rock type stuff, the like
yeah, exactly
goth
what it
stuff.
is.
Yeah, like it just wasn't for me. Like even now, it's not technically for me, but I think because I wasn't exposed to that kind of music, I
Mhm.
didn't have the extra connection point where I feel like other kids did. Like I remember my friend Dennis. My friend Dennis, um, he gave me a CD. If I ever see him, I haven't seen that kid in forever. If I ever see him again, I'd be like, "You don't know this, but he gave me the CD. It was a mixtape or a mix CD called Primal Rage." That's just what he named it. It wasn't like a song or anything. He just named it Primal Rage. And like all those songs I thought were just so demonic, but it was like, in hindsight, it was like Offspring, it was like Metallica. It was just like random shit that like as an
Man,
adult, well, not as an adult, but like in college, I was like, oh, I would have loved that CD. Like that would have
right.
been my jam. Um,
Oh, that's
Stone Temple
so fun.
Pilots, yeah. So I just think at the
Mhm.
time I didn't have the music connection, and I was still technically in my religious phase, so I thought
Mhm.
it may have been too demonic, and I just did not connect to it.
Hey, that's okay. I mean, not everyone's gonna like a certain movie or that being like my top tier favorite movie. Like, there's other people that have top tier favorite movies that maybe I don't agree with or don't like. Like,
Right.
it's film is subjective. You're gonna either love it or hate
Yeah.
it. So it doesn't really matter. In reality, like film is good because it strikes up a conversation.
Sure.
And I think that's what people forget about movies. Like nowadays, people take movies too seriously. Like, oh, it's too woke. It's too this. It's like it's a movie. It's supposed to distract us for 2 hours of everyday normal life. They're supposed to be fun, not supposed to be all these other things. Yeah, whatever. They have political messages in it. Whatever. It's part of society. So get over it and go enjoy something besides Fox News 24 hours a day. So
But like I was trying to think of some examples too. Like I think back in the day, back in my day, um, some of the like best movies of our time that did have um a political opinion, they were takes that we were all on the same page on. So
mhm.
like for Star Wars, we're all on the same page that Nazis are bad. I mean,
Right.
in current day and age, I feel like some people might be on the fence about it, but I feel like back then, we were all on the same page in the age of Star Wars that like the
Mhm.
Empire's bad. I think of Rambo, like we were all on the same page. Vietnam was kind of shitty. Like it's
Mhm. Yeah.
so it Rambo, which I think is Stallone's greatest movie of all time because he acted in that movie. I feel like Rambo tells a message of a real problem that everybody can get behind. And at the time, everybody definitely got behind it
Oh yeah.
and was able to ignore the fact that it was political commentary.
Mhm.
So,
I think people forget about like the movies that they grew up with. There was a lot of political undertones and stuff
yes,
compared to like now where it's more like in your face.
it's on the nose.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like everyone wanted to politicize the new Captain America movie because
Right.
why? Because we're in this climate, and that's kind of for that movie. That's why it got rewritten because it was too on the nose of what was happening currently. So there was like, oh, we got to change direction, and that's why that movie's kind of choppy. And overall, I enjoyed it. Like, it's not the greatest Marvel movie. It's
Mhm.
not the best Captain America movie for sure. It
Mhm.
was just an enjoyable, whatever, like under 2 hour movie. I don't even remember now.
Yeah.
um,
But
so
well, the thing is too, I made this point on the show this Thursday, and I've been meaning to like clip that segment and release it. Something is too woke unless it's good.
mhm.
And immediately, as you were talking, I thought of The Boys. Like I just finally
Oh yeah,
caught up to The Boys, and I feel like it's a wild take, but The Boys is super woke and
oh yeah,
super anti-Republican and anti-MAGA, and because The Boys is so good, you can't say the show's woke because if you say it's
no,
woke,
you
people are
can't.
gonna be like, "You're a fucking idiot." Like so I think what happens at times is you need if you're going to be in your face about it, the writing and the story needs to be there to make the haters shut up. And the example I showed this week was X-Men 97. I looked up 2 videos where people were bashing X-Men 90 because I was talking about this whole concept. I was like, let's look up people who said X-Men 97's woke. And I found 2 videos, and as per usual, there are people who are judging it before the show's out.
Correct.
But sure enough, they make the 2 videos, they make the videos going into the show comes out, and then crickets. Because even though the show was woke, it was so good, you would look crazy for saying the show's woke in a negative way. And you can't make
Totally
content on
agree.
that. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I feel like this day and age is all about is someone's got to make a political comment in their whatever they're doing to get the views.
Mhm.
Because I was just watching some today about something similar to that. Like, it's not cool unless you're doing something that's about what's going on politically right now. You
Mhm.
know, in this day and age, like that's just what's going on. Like all this bad stuff's going on because we have a certain person in the White House that shouldn't be there and is ruining everything right now. Um, yeah, like the boys, like you're saying, and that's true. Exactly, everything you just said is true about the boys. And coming from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who are rightfully very anti-MAGA, the
Mhm.
show is based on a comic book that is very pro. I guess no, I wouldn't say liberal Democrat. They're just it's very the way it is,
Yeah.
and
It's
going
anti
into
the
that
system.
right exactly. It's very,
Mhm.
as I would say, it's very punk rock basically.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so.
So the if you're going into that show expecting, I don't know, I never read the comic book, so I knew nothing about it. I just watched it, watched the first episode, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. Then I was just like, and then I'm gonna start talking about it more and more. I was like,
Mhm.
I need to rewatched it, got to the second episode, then it was the third, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I'm done. Damn, that was a good show. Second season, same thing. Just
Mhm.
roll right through it.
Mhm.
That show is very on the nose. Let's just put it that way. It's very on the nose. Like especially season 3, very on the nose.
Oh yeah,
What's going
yeah.
on? Like I don't know how you could not realize that that's what it was all about. Like
Hmm.
it's I'm like if you're MAGA, you should understand the show. And I felt like a lot of the stuff in that show went over their heads, and it just surprises me.
1,000%. And that is the wow part. I need to. It's funny. I need to do a video on it now. But like, it's it's wild because somebody will watch that, see the political commentary, understand the
Mhm.
political commentary, and still be like, but nah, like I'm still gonna do it anyway. Like,
Yeah,
but it's literally like a mirror in an
yeah,
extreme way. It's a funhouse mirror.
yeah.
And people are still like, I'm still gonna do it anyway. Like, I'm still gonna go
Yeah.
down to the White House. Like,
Still gonna do it.
yeah,
I'm not gonna get in trouble. It'll be fine.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's it's funny. Yeah, it's pretty funny how life current current stuff is in the forefront and stuff we watch, read, play, and it doesn't seem to sink in with those type of people that that's what it's about. It's like we're making fun of you in this way, but it's just going over your head, and you think
You
it's
watcher.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting how people, I guess, think. And yeah, I every day I for like I don't know, I think after Trump got into office, I was literally watched one thing on YouTube, and then it obviously, the algorithm want to suggest the next thing, and I'm like watching all these things on, and I was like, oh my god, what am I doing? I am getting sucked into this. I got to step away, and I need to get back into watching like the content that I normally watch, is
Right.
like movie stuff, toy hunts, your stuff, like anyone's stuff, so I don't have to have that in my feed all the time. And then I come back from WonderCon and got sucked right back into that whole thing because what's going on currently with the tariff stuff, like it just like lit a fire, and I was like, this is ridiculous that we're in
It
this time again.
I I've said this phrase before. I'll say the phrase again. I talked about it this week on my show, but the so I apologize if it's a repeat to
No,
anybody, but
you're good.
um, the stuff happening with the tariffs was my like. I try not to blend nerd affiliated with political things, but
Hmm.
I've been very weak in the last 2 weeks, um, because I feel like this one actually affects our community. Like this
Yeah.
one actually affects our hobby. Like
Hmm.
our channels are based on toy collecting, nerd movies,
Hmm.
TV shows. Like what's happening actually affects all of that.
Yep.
And for that reason, I'm trying to tell people you should be mad. Yes, you should feel dumb, like because as a cancer, I feel like my life goal is to make somebody feel like they're wrong and I'm right. But you should be upset in general because like what you enjoy is about to be lost. And
Correct.
like I said, somebody DM'd me who I don't take. I'm not bothered by their DM. They were very respectful in their DM. I was respectful back. We're still friends. There's other people who that's not the case. But with this
Hmm.
person, like we were both very cool about it in the comments, and I understood where he was coming from. Where it's like, bro, like part of what makes our community great is that we can escape reality and we can
Correct.
escape the modern day issue. And I was like, bro, I agree 1,000%. Like we watch each other and support each other because this is the one fandom. Well, sorry, this is the hobby that we have. Like I feel like the toy collecting hobby is the one hobby where like you you don't really necessarily see somebody's political stance. Like we can all be
Right.
in agreement that like there's certain action figures that we all want to get and we all think are awesome.
Hmm.
So to his point, he was like, you're kind of ruining that by starting to flood the zone with a bunch of political things. And I was like, I understand what you're saying, and I feel you on that. But what he's doing will affect what we find joy in. It will affect what generally keeps us from hating each other in this community. I'm very aware that there are MAGA people in the toy community at the same time that there's like socialist people in the toy community, fascist people in the toy community, liberals, and like we are, yes, we
Right.
are all inherently gonna have different opinions as to how the political landscape applies.
Correct.
However, this one thing should be a united front because
100% agree.
there is no toy in anybody's collection unless you exclusively purchase magic cards, of which I would probably argue there's still some of them that get imported, but unless you only collect magic cards, your stuff is an import of some sort.
Right.
Not we consider imports, and you know this, we consider imports Mayfex, SH Figure Arts.
Mhm.
But in reality, anything from Hasbro, NECA, Super 7, Four Horsemen, those are all technically imports because
Right.
they're not made here. And they can never be made here from the
No.
mouths of the people who make these. So
Right.
when I see toy collectors push back against it, I'm like, this is the one thing that's undeniable, undisputable. This thing
Correct.
will affect you if it doesn't change.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, I agree with everything you say. I know we've had a conversation about this, and I posted something yesterday, and you said I don't want to steal this from you. You should post it or do whatever. And I
You
did
shared
it.
with
And,
me, and I said, I'm not going to post it. You post it.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I did it. I shared it, and there was a lot of back and
Yeah.
forth with people. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, my thing is I don't get into politics. I mean, I will talk about it, but there's a right time and a wrong time. Like this is
Correct.
like you said, this is a hobby. Let's just keep it to the hobby part. But like you said, when it affects the hobby, that's
It affects
when
the
it
hobby.
needs to be. Yeah, when it affects the hobby, it should be talked about.
Yeah.
And you're right. We should all be on a united front about it.
Yeah.
And it just wildly blows my mind that there's people that aren't aligned with 90% of the people that are like, the heck, dude, this is going to get out of control.
Yeah.
So there's like a bunch of comments with a couple of guys that are going back and forth. I'm just letting them, handle it on their own. Like I'll step in when it gets to a point where like, okay, I'm just going to delete this comment. You're going to get blocked because this is getting out of hand. But so far, I haven't had really too many more. I don't think today.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like my point was doing that was just like weird that this figure just went up for pre-order 2-3 weeks ago, $24.99. And now I went to look at Best Buy for something else, and that popped up. I'm all $29.99. I'm like, what the hell? And then to someone's point, they're like, yeah, it's gonna be that because it's not out yet. Well, but why are all the other companies keeping it the same price? But Best Buy and GameStop are the only two that rose the price. I get his point. Like it's not out yet, so yeah, it's going to be affected. But that would mean anything that's been in pre-order for months that hasn't come out yet should be affected too, but they're not. But why is that one figure now affected? Because those tariffs just went in effect.
The one thing I'm going to give those people is the fact that we do not know whether it's affected or not, because Hasbro won't tell you this is what my cost is to get it in a store. You'll never know that number. So in a way, if I'm really to be devil's advocate here, they could be inflating the number and blaming tariffs when that is not the case. Because we did actually see that during COVID. Again, universal truth. I think everybody can agree to that statement. But it doesn't change the fact that that is a strong potential for why it could be that number. And one of the things I was saying before, I was going to make a post today and I didn't. I don't know why I didn't, other than I was busy at work. But right now, Volkswagen, like anybody who's listening to this who wants to say bullshit, feel free to look it up. Volkswagen has announced that cars that have already docked, are already at port, currently are being told by Volkswagen, do not offload those because we don't know if the second it hits the dock, is it 10%, 17%, 25%, because we're not getting exact answers from people. So
Correct.
everything's on hold until this gets figured out. So for car heads, there are people who maybe have ordered a new whatever WRX from Volkswagen, and now it's, where is it? Oh, it's at the dock. Okay, well, again, everything is money. So if it's still on the ship, I'm paying that crew to still stay on the ship and they can't move. I'm paying the dock worker because you got to wait until I'm ready to offload that thing. Like there's a domino effect to this. So whether you want to admit it or not, facts are the facts with this thing. If they're doing it with Volkswagen now with cars that are already here, your pre-order is in danger. Like
Correct.
your dragon is in danger. Like if I am Four Horsemen, which this is not like a hit piece on Four Horsemen, but like if I'm Four Horsemen, I don't know those guys. I don't know their financials, but I'll tell you what, them eating a 25, or in this case, based on his retaliatory, if there's 104% tariff on an import from China by the time that dragon comes, you think Four Horsemen's going to be like, don't worry, we got you on a $500 pre-shipping cost? Because that was also the thing people realized after it launched. There's a shipping charge after that, just like with the fucking Super 7 Thundercat layer. You're like, oh, it's only this amount. Oh, wait, but the shipping's $100. Like, there's a possibility that when it comes here, if you want to collect the dragon, you're gonna have to pay more than you agreed to, because either they charge you for it or they go out of business, and it can't be both.
Right. Yeah, and with that part, you're right, because they're saying they're going to eat the costs, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or
Nope.
3 days from now, or a week from now, 2 months from now. It could just end up being 100% tariff. Like we don't really know at this point. And that's where this has all become very messy, because he doesn't even know what the hell he's doing. He's just like, I don't like them, so now I want a 50%.
Right.
They pissed me off. Now I want it to be 75.
Right.
It's just all over the place, and I get it. Like that's why the stock market is crashing. We're already, like they've said, we're heading into recession. Things are getting more expensive. Trying to think. Obviously, I went to WonderCon last weekend, and usually Southern California gas is super high because it's just bigger city. It was weird coming back to Northern California, and gas was higher than it was when I got it down there. And I was like, wait, this is the opposite. That's weird. So it's like 20 cents more expensive here than it was there. And I was like, wow, this is nuts. I was not expecting that.
That's trippy.
Yeah.
Right now, the cost per barrel is decreasing because they're trying to get ahead of people might be too panicked to travel. So let's do what we can to lower the cost of gas to entice people to want to travel.
Right. And here we are, like in the industry that I work in, my boss is worried because, like you said, a lot of stuff, not a lot, most of the stuff we get is obviously shipped from like Texas or LA, but it comes from China or somewhere in the Philippines or wherever. Like, doesn't really matter. It's overseas. So, you know, when I came back to work for my job in December, one of my first things was like, because he was like, you know, business is slow. What are we going to do? I was like, we need to go and check every competitor, like what their prices are.
Mm-hmm.
Window tinting, car detailing, whatever, because that's what I'm in. That's the industry I'm in. So he's like, okay, well, you call around, you know, in your area and find out. So we do it. I automatically lower the prices.
Yeah.
Didn't tell him because he just said, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Lower the prices. Business started picking up. What's going to happen now? I don't know. Now he's freaking out about all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I've been trying to tell you this for months. Like, this could possibly happen.
Yeah.
This is why the prices have to be the way they are. People are going to start spending a lot less because back to the COVID era, here we go. Food's more important, staying home is more important, eating in is more important. I mean, obviously things are already expensive as they are. Like I don't eat McDonald's, but I ordered food there and I was like shocked that the $1.29 soda that went to $1.49 was $1.69 a week later. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what? 20 cents up? I'm like, damn, only a week.
Yeah.
You know, and I like I
And
said,
people don't even think about the what it travels in. Like the
right.
material it travels in can also be an import.
Yeah.
Aluminum on beer cans.
Oh yeah.
You don't think about that.
Nope. It's gonna get wild, man. And you know, what as the middle class, like we all live paycheck to paycheck. You know, we don't yeah, I have all this stuff, but I have literally have like been buying less and less over the last few months. Like normally I would like, oh, I got all this, I got this, got this. Now it's just like I've become very picky of what I want to buy and pick up.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's why a lot of people start going back to the vintage stuff because
Yep.
here we are in the modern age. We can't find anything, like
Mm-hmm.
literally can't find nothing. And then a store resets. They have a flood of stuff, and then it's all gone. And then
Yeah.
you're still like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, where's all the content going to come from?
Yeah.
You know, and that's my least worry right now. Like, whatever. Um, it's just it's wild times. It's definitely scary.
Yeah.
Like today was my day off, and normally I like to. Well, I usually toy hunt anyway. Regardless, I didn't. I did a little bit, but not much. And usually, like I'm like, oh, I'll go get something to lunch. Nope. Came home and made myself a sandwich. Stayed at home, and then picked up my kids from school, and here we are. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like already thinking ahead, like, okay, I can't do this. You know, I have a lot of things going on, as do you. I have a lot of cons. I have SoCo Gaming Expo the week of my birthday. Then I have Comic Con literally the next month. So I'm just like, okay, I gotta sell off a bunch of stuff and hold all this money for these two things. And
Yeah.
that'll probably be the only two things I do the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sucks.
It's like I'm looking at my desk here. Like I picked up my I think these are the only two pickups I have this year, technically, at the moment. The first one is the G.I. Joe Halo jumper.
Oh, mhm.
Picked him up for $15. I'm actually mad because my Target actually had a bunch of these and it eventually hit clearance. And last week they were doing the spend 30, like you save 10 or you save 5 or something like that.
Right.
So I picked up the Halo jumper and then I picked up the female sniper, also 15
Good
bucks.
figures.
Yep. The Halo jumper, he's gone. I went back this weekend and I was like, damn, he's already gone. I should have expected that and picked up a couple more for the sake of photographs. And they're both great. And I'm looking at their feet. That's what I was looking down a little while ago. And they're made in China, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, like as the year goes on, like right now we're in April and I've only bought 2 figures. And that's because they were both on discount with an additional discount on top of that.
Yeah.
You know, I pre-ordered the firefighter from Hasbro, G.I. Joe Classified. I pre-ordered 2 of the Daredevils from Hasbro. And if things continue, they may be the only figures I get. And if Hasbro messages me and says, hey, like you need to do us a solid and pay extra on these, you know, the firefighter's I'm good. Like I'll get one Matt Murdock and call it a day But like, we have like you said, we have our own priorities. Like we have our families. We
Right.
have, and somebody else I was talking to, a different individual, was like, "Oh, well, I just won't collect this year," and I'm like, "A fair." But you do know that this includes things outside of
Yeah,
collectibles. Like you have
everything.
kids.
Yeah.
Back to school will be here before you know it. And
Yep.
those pencils, the backpack, the clothes, all of that is part of this. And then a whole different friend was he's always been like anti whatever's like he was like uh uh he was Bernie or bust back when that was a thing, and
Mm.
but he's one of those that went from Bernie or bust to Trump, like because that's how much I
Oh,
hate Hillary. And I'm like, all right, bro, like I hear you, but literally you're in construction. You don't think this will affect you. All
oh
right,
God.
let's see. Let's see.
Yeah,
I know,
because
Kenobi, I got
all
two.
that's because all the wood and everything isn't. Let's put it this
Literally
way:
to steal.
everything that's right and
Yeah.
steel, wood, and everything comes from somewhere else, and it's weird that the stuff that we cut down and we do like the wood for housing and stuff isn't for here. It goes somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
It's
But there's also
yeah,
things
I
that
mean,
we can't do, right? Like I told him, I was like, bro, you get coffee every morning. We
right.
don't grow that. That's
Nope.
one that we literally cannot grow outside of a warehouse, in which case you still need steel to build a warehouse and the factory. But
Yeah, everything's affected no matter what.
yeah.
Collectibles, food, clothing, car
Oh yeah.
parts, like everything. And that's what I was telling my employee because he bought a car that he was trying to basically fix up and rebuild and he wants to resell it. And I told him, I was like, hey, so whatever parts you need to get for your car, you
Do
should
it
probably
now.
get them now before this happens. And this is before it actually happened. And
Yep.
now he wants a body kit. And I'm all, have you looked at the body kit? Has it changed? He's like, no, it stayed the same. I'm all, regardless, you should probably order it now in case that does start going up. I'm all, unless it's in stock in a warehouse in the United States, it's probably not going to change. But if they have to order it outside the United States, it's probably
Toast.
going to change.
Yep.
Just buy it now. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right. And I'm like, well, I am right, but I'm not wrong.
Somebody was in my comments and said that. They were um like my friend went to the auto place and they were like yeah, like whatever you're trying to buy, like you need to do it now. And then they
Yeah.
went back the next day and the price was like double and they're like, I'm sorry, like that's just that's literally what the computer's telling me. Like
Yeah.
it's wild,
I mean,
but it's not
yeah.
false, and people
No,
are
it's not.
treating it like it's not real.
Yeah, it's treating it like it's fake. It's not. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So when you start crying about something, then you don't, you're going to wait. You're going to hear us tell you, like, we told you so. Like we've been doing
Yeah,
since someone's been in office. We told you so. We told you so. We told you so.
yeah,
And now you're crying about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Politics, man. Ruining everything right now.
Sorry, I ruined your stream.
No, no, you're good. It was going to happen anyway. Oh, so before we end, we got like 10 more minutes. And if you guys have questions if you have questions to put in the comments, you guys go ahead and do that. But I want to go back a little bit, back to, well, I guess college. Let's just go back into adulthood. So fast forward through all that. You're
Yep.
married now. You have a house. You have a successful, almost said stream. Jeez, show with Nerd Affiliated. You have your friends. You got your health. So right now, besides what's going on in the world, what are you looking forward to in pop culture going forward for the rest of the year? And tell me the very first movie you've seen that you remember as a child, and what are you looking forward to this year? Doesn't have to be comic book movie related. It could be anything.
Ooh, a lot of questions.
Lots of questions.
Okay, so looking forward to in the movie space, Thunderbolts. I do want to see Thunderbolts. Now, that's I am literally saying that just for the sake of an answer. Like, do I feel obligated to see Thunderbolts in theaters? No. But if I'm to pick a movie to see in theaters, it would be that. Um shit, what was the other? Oh, first movie scene I remember as a kid is Michelangelo like, "Hey, wait for me," and he puts his head in. I love being a turtle. Like that's the first because I remember leaving and going like that in the car because we had a car at that point actually, which is crazy to think.
Ugh.
In the Bronx, like I remember that vividly. Um, and then there was a third one in there.
So, in the current like pop culture in general, it could be music, it could be TV show, it could
Something I'm
be
looking
movie
forward to.
in general. Yeah, what are you looking forward to for? Because we're only in April. Like May is literally like 3 weeks away. Thunderbolts is like
That's crazy.
less than a month now. And yes, I bought my tickets early this morning at like 4 in the morning. But yeah, I got them.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are you looking forward to? Let's just put it this way: musically, TV, and movies. Like, what are the out of those genres of things? What are you most looking forward to out of all that?
Um, it's funny. I literally just thought about that as you were asking it, and you said music. I think the thing I'd be most looking forward to is actually music related, and that is I discovered last year or maybe the end of I forget what year we're in. Sometimes we're in 25, so maybe the end of 23. I discovered via TikTok a YouTube channel called Lawn Chair Youth.
Hmm.
And Lawn Chair Youth, the guy I DM him from time to time, just tell him he's awesome. Um, I guess a Steven backstory to complete that whole line of questions. I've been a huge fan of music videos since as long as I can remember. Like I love a good music video. And my favorite kind of music video is like the one take type of video where it's just a band playing. It doesn't matter where they are, they're just doing their thing. And this guy, I think his name is Carl, he started a YouTube channel called Lawn Chair Youth.
Hmm.
And I found them on TikTok because it was a hardcore style video and the people playing were definitely younger than me. And all the comments were like, I'm so happy the younger generation is doing this, blah, blah. So I look up the YouTube channel. Every video is black and white. It's the band in front of a giant white backdrop. And it's just him with his camera recording them play whatever the song is that they're going to play. Um, Almost all of the new music I've discovered in the last or I guess at this point, it almost might be 2 years. I'll just say last year. All the new music I've discovered is via Long Chair Youth because
Wow.
they're like Cinema Stare out of Connecticut. Like that to me, that's the next Paramore band, like whether they
Okay.
agree it or not, like that listening to that music, I was like, wow, like there's new pump music a la Paramore that exists. Didn't know that. Um, I think a Backbiter, they have a new album coming out. I think the drummer might even be trans, and it's the most like sheetrock punching music ever that you like, and it's amazing. And I'm like, oh wow, like there's this whole movement of music that the youth is doing that is better than the shit we grew up on. Cold Steel, so many of them. So to answer that part of the question, I'm looking forward to more Lawn Chair Youth videos as he moves into a bigger space because the channel has
Hmm.
grown. But also just looking forward to new music this year. like the new Backbiter album, that you just listen to and you want to punch your face you want to just punch your own face. But it's so good. Uh, it,
Uh,
yeah,
I'm interested. I like that stuff.
yeah.
I like metal. I mean,
He does but there's other music on that channel. That's the crazy part.
great.
If you look up that YouTube channel, he started doing rap. It was actually a rap channel, and he started doing rappers on along the white wall in black and white, and then because I always do this, I go to YouTube channel and I'll click on oldest, and then I'll like see the transitions and how they changed. So it was all rap, and I was like, oh, as a Bronx kid who grew up on Linkin Park, like, and Linkin Park when they rolled out, like Linkin Park like it fused rap and rock together. Like,
correct.
That's what that did. And I could see as it was all rap, and then he turned into, I'll give this rock band a try, or I'll give this punk rock, band a try. I could see where the transition happened in his YouTube channel. So seeing where he is now, knowing that it's relevant music that is not popular because society doesn't say it's popular, but like we're still putting out punk, we're still putting out rap, we're still putting out punk and rap, we're still putting out alternative. Flyover States is another band. They do 1.5-minute songs of just like punk, punch you in the face. Like, it's great. So the fact that that's still a thing and that channel's blowing up, that's what I'm looking forward to this year. I'm sorry, that was like 30 minutes of me explaining that.
It's all that's cool. Like, I would have never. That's a good thing. That's the one thing about doing this is, yes, we're friends. We know each other through YouTube and we talk about toys and whatever, but we don't really know each other. Like that's kind of like the reason why I want to do it. This format was getting to know young Steven, childhood into middle school, into high school, college, adulthood. I know you as the adult. I didn't know you as a child. Obviously, we live in 2 different states. So that was kind of the whole reason why I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do something a little different. Obviously, we're going to talk about something toy related. And that's kind of like one of the questions is like, do you remember the first toy you got as a kid? What was the toy that you played with the most? Blah, blah, blah. Could be comic book, whatever. So that's the whole point of the series of podcasting. That's tomorrow will be The Man Collects. So the same question will be asked to him and to Mike. So over and over and over, but obviously they have different things. So because there's so many toy podcasts, they talk about the same thing, and it's usually something negative about something in the toy community. Given the big controversy was Maximum Spider-Man, now it's Maximum Hulk. So it's just like, we got to get away from this whole bashing Hasbro thing. Like, okay, it's done and over. Let's just move on from that whole thing now. Let's get into something a little bit more intimate and get to know each other on a one-on-one basis and in a different light. That was the whole premise from behind all this. So anyway, that's the long story short. That's the reason why I wanted to do it this way. So,
and I apologize for whoever. I got a new sub, and that's why that thing just went off. I don't know if you heard that in the. I was just like,
the sirens outside of my house right now. Well, he's doing illegal podcasting. Oh.
I did see JJ had 2 questions. I didn't get a chance to read them.
Yes, he does have 2 questions.
I had too much Basil Hayden to read.
We'll get to those questions, JJ. So music is like my second love. I think a lot of those bands, never heard of them, and I will check them out. And that made me think of something when you were saying that. So this channel on YouTube reminds me of when I was a kid. Maybe you open a CD, could be say like Blink-182 or Korn or whatever, and you look at the liner notes of who they think, and you're like, I've never heard of this band. I'm gonna go check them out. That's exactly what it made me think of. Made me go back to when I was a kid. Got my very first CD or tape back then, cassette tape. And I was the first thing I would listen to the whole tape a million times, and then I'd go through and see if they had lyrics. Most of them didn't, or did. And I'd be like, oh, I wonder who they think. And that's how I guess got more into pop punk because of Blink 182. I was a huge fan when they were
Yep.
nobodies.
Yep.
And it'd be like MXPX. I was like, oh, I've heard of them because I went to church and they were a big, in the church community.
Mm-hmm.
Dancehall Crashers, Homegrown, Less Than Jake. Like that's what
Yep.
got me into more and more bands. And when you said that, it automatically made me think of that. And so that what they're doing is kind of like what they did in the past, but it was in a booklet, basically.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
introducing you to bands or artists that you've never heard of, and I think that's awesome because today's youth don't know anything about that.
No, there was a band that popped up on like Jimmy Kimmel had them on, and it went viral because like a mosh pit happened when they were there. And I asked my wife's, I always fuck up how to say this. It's technically my wife's brother-in-law, so I guess he's my brother-in-law as well. This is the best way to say it. He was in a hardcore band. And usually what I'll do is I'll give feelers out to people who are not heavy on social media to be like, hey, have you ever heard of this movie or this band or this whatever? And that band that was on Jimmy Kimmel, he knew them because he was like, oh, like I saw them online and I was just like, oh, that's cool. Like they've, at least people still like our music that we like. But what I like about Long Chair Youth is we had that avenue of the cassette, like you said. We also had the avenue of like MTV2, Fuse TV. Like you had these avenues where it was like, this is just for the anti-pop stuff. This is what you should go to next. If you like this, you go to that. And Blink 182 is one of those bands that like crossed both worlds. Like they came out, they were very punk, they became very pop. And then somebody that you would know in school was like, hey, you like Blink 182? Oh, they sold out. Like, here's this new band, Taking Back Sunday. Like, oh, here's this new band, Sum 41, like, so you would have that, but then you'd have the reinforcement of an MTV2 or a Fuse or whatever. And since all of those are gone now, all we rely on is a TikTok or a YouTube. And I appreciate that a channel like Long Chair Youth is almost like dedicated to only having not popular new bands on there in the same format.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it appeases the algorithm because it looks the same every time. It's black and white. It's probably the same hashtags every time. But every time they post a new video, you're like, okay, based on the history, I'm going to assume I like this. I'm going to watch it.
So. Yeah. I was going to say, you brought up Fuse, and I was like, oh, man, I haven't heard that freaking channel in a long time, man.
Oh, you should watch. I'll remind me tomorrow when I'm sober. There's somebody did a YouTube video on the rise and fall of Fuse, and that video is wild to just because it's wild because everything's the same, but everything's different. Like the story of Jon Favreau making Iron Man, of the salesman who pitched Ninja Turtles to whatever company that was, to Fuse TV. The story is always the same, and the outcome's always the same. Something that nobody believes in, that they just say, F it, you go have fun. And the second it makes money, some random rich person is like, great, I know how to actually make this successful. And they F it up every single time. And Fuse is that I watched that documentary and I was just like, it's amazing. It just, the cycle is always the same every time.
Yeah, I want to remind you because I used to watch Fuse religiously because they played everything I listened to that MTV never did.
Exactly.
And MTV
that was their marketing angle.
Headbangers. Yeah, and MTV had Headbanger Ball, but that was on like 1 a.m, and
on MTV2
that late to go watch. Yeah, not watch music videos. Yeah, no. So yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, holy crap.
Because
Yeah, that
eventually
brought me
Warp
back.
Tour,
Fuse.
which was only like maybe referenced on MTV2, Warp Tour was like full on advertised on Fuse. So
Oh yeah, all the time.
it was as anti-establishment as it got.
Oh yeah. And that's me. I'm very anti-establishment, even though I collect Hasbro.
Love that.
Damn you, Hasbro, for having Marvel Legends.
Yeah, damn you for making good figures.
Damn you. Yeah. Trying to think. Damn. Fuse. I remember that channel because kind of like off topic a little bit, but Mark Hoppus had his own like show on Fuse.
Yeah.
He had 2 shows because he started one and then they canceled it, and then he went and did something different where it was interviewing different bands. It weren't punk bands, it was just anybody, pretty much anybody. And yeah, so tomorrow I'll be getting his book, Fahrenheit 182, from Amazon. Yay, Amazon. I'll be getting that tomorrow. So I think there's a section from I remember him talk about the Fuse time. So I need to watch that doc, and then I'll probably read this book and see how if they collide somehow. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. Everybody's anti-establishment until you become it. You know, like I think of Metallica, and you know, Metallica, for people who don't know, was forced to make the music video for I was gonna say Enter Sandman. It's not Enter Sandman. One, the music video for One, they had at that point been asked endless times to make a music video, and they were like, no, because only pop punk, or not punk at that time, but like only pop people do music videos. Like only Michael Jackson does it. Like only Prince does it. Like we don't do that. And they're like, you need to do a music video. And eventually the Black Album comes out, or sorry, was One Master Puppets? It might be Master Puppets. Anyway, they're like, you need to do a music video, and they're like, all right, we'll agree to put us, you know, we'll do this thing. It's going to be as least effort as possible. And they make one of the greatest influential videos of all time, which is them in a warehouse with, it's not black and white, it's more of like a blue and white, I guess.
Yeah, I remember that.
But a fucking game changer, like an absolute game changer of a video. And they tried their best to be as anti-establishment as they could. And currently in the year 2025, Metallica is so big, they literally cannot stop touring because there are hundreds of employees that will be laid off if they stop. Yeah. That's how big it's gotten, you know? So you're anti-establishment until you actually become establishment.
Well, yeah, that also brings up the whole them being anti-Napster. Yeah. And now they're pro Spotify. So
yes.
It's just money always talks. That's just how this world works. And it's sad to say that a lot of these bands that are very anti-corporate, but I'm like, you work for a corporation. So
yeah, how
can you be anti-corporate? How can you be anti-Napster? Because with Napster, your music was going out to people who've never heard of you.
Exactly.
And now we have Spotify.
That's exactly how I found
YouTube, like all that. Like that's how a lot of these bands survive, because not only just like you mentioning a couple bands I've never heard of, I already forgot who they are, but I'll have you text them to me later. I'll probably look them up tonight, and I'll be like, I'm gonna go listen to them.
There's two in particular that I'm like, oh, I know he's gonna like this.
Yeah, see, you have a very good eye for what I'm into, because majority of my youth was, I'm not allowed to listen to something, like we go back to what you were talking about beginning. Can't listen to that. I listen to it to piss off my parents or my mom more so. Punk rock was just my thing because I was into the skateboarding community, grew up listening to that, and it's very anti everything that I'm. The punk community is really how I am, I guess. Like, man collects least favorite wrestler, CM Punk. He's very anti everything, and that's kind of how I am. I didn't realize how, and that's kind of why I gravitate towards CM Punk, because he's very anti-establishment. But here we go again, back to that whole thing, is now he works for the corporation that he was against. It just cracks me up. So, but he's still entertaining.
I got kids.
So, Yeah.
I got
So
kids, I got
entertaining.
bills.
He's still a good wrestler for the most part.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, that's music wise, yes. You have like the general gist of what I'm into. Like I'm into a lot of things. There's a lot of pop stuff you probably would never expect me to listen to. I was very not into Taylor Swift, and then not saying I'm a Swifty, but I do like some of her music. I'm like, sometimes I don't even know it's her. I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Oh, it's Taylor Swift. Oh, okay, okay. I guess I
There,
like it.
you know, I'm gonna. We're probably so deep into the podcast that if he was here, he's not listening right now. But there was somebody who on their podcast was saying, you know, Taylor Swift obviously made a deal with the devil because nobody can get that big unless they made a deal with the devil. And I was like, and they were like, oh, I would never let my daughter listen to Taylor Swift. I was like, bro, you don't think it's possible that she just makes good music? Like, do you really think that that is so impossible that there are some things that are just that catchy that people like it? You know, and one of the ones that I, you know, I've said it on my channel at this point 1,000 times. And if I was able to time travel and show myself this, you know, back in the day, I would say a lot of derogatory things towards myself now. But like the Real Housewife shows, I absolutely love them. Because you know what?
Oh,
You know why they're so popular? Because they're fucking entertaining. Like at a
I
certain
get it.
point,
Yeah,
they become entertaining. And it's like, you know, we can make fun of them. And I do think that the show, like from a superficial level, I think pop music is dumb. I think the Real Housewife shows are dumb. I think Taylor Swift is dumb. But at a certain point, you can't deny when you watch something or listen to something, or I should say, when you give it a try, and you're like, "Damn, it's kind of catchy though." Like
yep.
you're like, "Oh, I hate everything they're about, but that song's kind of good." You know, it happens.
Yeah. Oh man, it does, and it's funny that you bring up Real Housewives because my wife was watching every season and whatever spinoffs they have, and I
Yep.
got sucked into them.
Yep.
And then at some point, we started watching the Kardashians, and I was like, nope, can't do this.
Me too.
I'm like, they're
Actually,
just too
that's my
legit.
line. That is my line.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, they're just too fake. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, this is what's wrong with society and how they're trying to portray an image for young women. I'm like, nope, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. None of that stuff. I'm like, you guys are all rich and bitching and complaining about plastic surgery and
Yeah.
this guy cheating on your husband or whatever. I'm just like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna go back to my nerd culture where everyone's on the same page.
I'm gonna ask this question. It's a stupid question. You know Action Bronson, right?
Yes.
So Action Bronson was on Hot Ones one time.
Hmm.
And I think, spoiler alert, he may have divorced that woman and now he's with a new wife. But nonetheless, he was on Hot Ones and somebody asked him, or somebody, obviously the host, asked him some question. And he was like, you know, like, I'm not really into that anymore. He's like, my goal for like a Friday night is like going home, like taking my pants off, sitting in my boxers, eating some food with my wife, and watching Grey's Anatomy. And I was like, I get that. Like at a
Yeah.
certain point, you're just like, I just want to chill and not worry about, am I gonna look like a pussy for watching this show or whatever. Or, you know, to quote Lars from Metallica, he said at a certain point in the 90s, I was afraid to be caught on camera drinking milk because the alcoholica thing was so strong. I thought we would literally lose our record deals if I was drinking water. Like,
Oh yeah.
so you get to a point in your punk age and your punk anti whatever that you're just like, I just want to be me. And sometimes that involves just watching Real Housewives.
Yeah. I'm still punk rock, I guess, and I will refuse to watch
We
it. No,
always will
that's
be.
not true. I'll like my wife will be watching it sometimes, and I'll be like catching up. I'm like, so is this person on the show? Oh no, they were gone in like 6 seasons ago. I'm like, okay, is this person on it? Oh, who's this chick? Oh, this
Mhm,
is who this is. And
mhm.
I'm like, damn it, now I'm invested. Not gonna sit here and watch this episode.
Exactly. It
And I'm
gets
like,
you.
damn, I hate this show. Yep, I hate
There
it.
was a video of like somebody was like, oh, when dad says this show's stupid, but then he's secretly watching, and like
Yeah.
they're showing the show, and then they pan over and dad's like on the staircase, like this, because he refuses to sit down to say he's watching it, but he'll stand
Right.
in the
Yeah.
corner because he's doing something.
Yeah.
But
I'm making
somehow he's
dinner.
3 episodes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let's get to these questions from JJ. So JJ, still here. So he's asking, what comic character or character in general would you like to see on the big screen or TV?
Mighty Max. Mighty
Ooh.
Max is my number one. So when I started my YouTube channel, I made top 5 properties that should be a like TV or a movie or should be redone. And as the years went on, I said these are the top 5 that like if I could direct or produce, I would want to do them. What battles for number 1 and 2 is Mighty Max and Centurions. Like I would,
Mm.
I'm still a low level YouTuber that does not make money doing this, but if I had one make a wish fucking thing, it would be to either do a remake of Centurions or to do a remake of Mighty Max. And I already have the Centurions trailer in my head. The trailer for Centurions has been there for the last 20 years. I know exactly what to do to make a trailer that people have no idea what it is. And then in the last 2 seconds, they're like it's been there. It's been there. So
These be animated or live action?
live action for sure.
Okay.
Animated be too easy. Like it's hard, but it's also going to be too easy. So, and I know Kenobi's also a fan of Centurions. We've talked about this. My number 1 answers will be Mighty Max, but Centurions is like right there. Depends on when you catch me.
Do you think Centurions would work in today's world
as a live action movie?
Yeah, in today's environment in live action, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because they're just shooting robots. So Correct. It's like, I can make Jake Rockwell have all the freaking guns that shoot lasers. And because they're shooting other robots, people will be like, yeah, that's fine. I think it's easier to make a super violent Centurions movie than it would be to make a super violent G.I. Joe movie.
True, because G.I. Joe is aimed more towards kids, I guess. Well, I don't know.
But G.I. Joe Cobra is like, feel free to make this a clip, by the way. I feel like G.I. Joe, Cobra, la, 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 like those are other people. So there's only so much you can do. Because even back in the day with G.I. Joe, the rule based on the government was they could shoot each other, but it always had to fly overhead. With Centurions, you can mow down endless robots and it's fine. So I think Centurions is a far easier thing to make.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's robots, and funny because that was something that was brought up at WonderCon during McFarlane's panel, which I think someone clipped it and put it up on the internet to talk about why what the last straw was, why he left Marvel. Was he drew a panel, I can't remember what issue it is, Spider-Man, I think 15 or 16. Anyway, the panel was like I think it was Shatterstar stabbed Juggernaut in the eye and it had blood and everything. And they're like, no, you can't do that. Like you got to change that. And so he changed it and that wasn't in there anymore. And he said that was the last straw and why he quit. Yeah. And I was like, that was the last straw. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But I get it because the comic Marvel and all that, they all have the comic book code. You had to go by the code. Marvel was too scared for something like that. Now they're not afraid of stuff like that. They do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. People forget that, like, if you watch Spider-Man, the animated series, there's never a punch to the face. Like, nobody ever makes physical contact in a hitting manner. Like, it's always you throw somebody into something, you throw a thing at somebody. Correct. But they were not allowed to have actual, I can hurt you with my hands, violence on Spider-Man, the animated series. But even going back to earlier conversations, the writing was so good, it didn't matter.
Yep. And he also brought up, he's like, in that cover of Daredevil where you see Bullseye with Elektra's sigh in her, but it doesn't
Mm.
come out through the other side of her. It's just in the clothes. He's all,
You see the clothes, yeah.
that, yeah, that's what you were able to do. You weren't able to have it pierce through. And I was like, man, I never really thought about that because as a kid, I was just like, I thought it was cool. But now as an adult, as you hear these things, you're like, oh, damn, that sucks.
But it's fucking, that's a badass cover though. That's one of those.
Yeah, it's a badass.
That's
cover.
a happy accident.
Iconic. Yeah, iconic cover. But nowadays, it's just like in the comic books now, you can do all that stuff. So it's like it doesn't really matter anymore. Yeah, it was interesting listening to his story of when he started into comic books, how many times he rejected. He has all the letters. He wrote it down on note cards. Like when he sent it, when he got something back, when he got rejected.
Yep.
It's very interesting to learn about a lot about him. And then his relationship with Jim Lee and stuff on. Yep. It's on YouTube. People, I think McFarlane might have posted it too. I don't really know, but you definitely watch it. It was very interesting listening to his history in the comic books and moving away from Marvel. So it's pretty cool.
He's one of the, and sorry to drag it on for, like I have the biggest love-hate with him because his story is absolutely amazing. And as a salesperson, as a marketer, all of it, like the Todd McFarlane story is great. And some of the releases that have happened piss me off. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't hate you because I know where you came from. I know what the goal is. I know the assignment. And anybody who ever talks shit about Todd McFarlane, I'm kind of like, fuck you, even if I don't like the toys at the moment, because his story and how he got to where he is right now, I'm like, I can't. He'll say wild stuff too. I've watched interviews where he says wild things where I'm like, okay, boomer. But at the same time, I'm like, but at the same time, you're the only one that made it this far, being a rebel.
Yeah, that's exactly, like he's the only guy who's not in a, I guess, corporate, because DC is owned by Warner Brothers, Marvel is now owned by Disney, and a corporate setting in comic books, because Amazing Spider-Man and all those have gone so far, and then they reboot them. They start number one. Spawn's the only independent comic that has continued on and on and on. I think they're getting close to 400 on that now. And I was like, I didn't really realize that until he said that.
Yeah.
I'm all, wow. Speaking of, like, not to gloat, but
there you
go. Signed Spider-Man number one. So
love that.
Yeah. That, like, same thing, love-hate relationship with him. Until I met him, it was like a whole different story. Like I didn't really talk to him very long, but what I did talk to him about was very, very cool. Which is like I told him, hey, I drove 9 hours to this, and he's like, oh, from where? I told him where I live, and he's like, oh, I know where that's at. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, no one knows where I live from. That's weird.
Yeah.
And then I told him, like, I've had this comic since 1990, and he was like, oh wow, that's the original one. I'm like, yeah, like you can look through the book. It's like it's old. It's like it was. Anyway, he was impressed because going to something like that, most people are buying comic books there that look fresh.
Yes. Yeah.
This is worn through. Like I've read it a million times. Tons of spine ticks. And that to seeing me tell him that, him look up at me and like smile, like I could see in his head, like, wow, he's been a fan since he was young. And this is his original comic, not something bought at a WonderCon or a con for me to sign. Like I told him, like, this means so much that I'm having you sign my original book.
Yeah.
And it was just cool to see him be like, kind of like light up a little bit. And I was like, oh, that was cool. So that was just like, for the rest of the day, I was just like on cloud nine. But then back and forth, I'm like, I still hate most of your figures.
But it's funny, like the Todd McFarlane story, I immediately tie that to Kevin Conroy, where the story is not possible to do right now, but I wonder what the new trailblazer is that we don't know about. And to elaborate, Todd McFarlane literally was like, lying on resumes and just sending out pictures and, not emailing, but like writing letters, like that wouldn't fly now. Like you wouldn't get, past a certain point. Kevin Conroy, the reason I compare Todd McFarlane to Kevin Conroy is Kevin Conroy was a theater actor on Broadway or off Broadway, and the person who got hired to do casting for Batman the Animated Series was a theater fan and saw him and said, "I think you would be a great voice for Batman." And he was like Adam West Batman, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm going to try something different." And that led us to Batman the Animated Series. So even Kevin Conroy is like, nobody would in the current day and age go to a random play, hear a random person talk, and say you should be this person. Like it's got to
Right.
be now. Are you already established with a social media following? Are you Chris Pratt? Are you Jack Black? No, then I'm not going to listen to you. I need somebody else.
Yeah. Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say even in the panel and listening to him, he even said it, which is that was kind of funny, and I was like, oh, he's right. Todd McFarlane is very punk rock. He
Oh, 1000%.
pretty much he
1000%.
worked for a corporation or whatever, and now he's on independent and he
Mhm.
does whatever he wants. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I want to be.
Yeah.
I want to draw a comic book, and I want to just make toys. No, I don't want to do that.
You know who's
Too
like that too
expensive.
is James Gunn. James Gunn
Yeah.
was on Rosenbaum's podcast Inside of You,
Mm,
and he's like Rosenbaum was like, "Oh, like your soundtracks are iconic for like Guardians of the
yeah, yeah.
Galaxy and all these things." And he's like, "It's all music I don't listen to." And Michael was like, "What but like they're good albums or like good soundtracks." And he's like, "No, I know those are popular songs. And I know those are good songs by societal standards. I don't fucking like any of those songs. My songs wouldn't make it." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, you're like punk rock, but like you understand the assignment." Like,
Correct. Yeah, he's very punk rock.
Yeah.
JJ's second question was one thing from your youth you would like to bring back. I think we kind of tackled that. So the youth now learn or enjoy it like we or yourself did.
Um, that answer is Savage Dragon. I think Savage Dragon is one that I would bring back. Um, I think Hellboy was the closest thing I had to Savage Dragon in live
Hmm.
action. So if I was to bring back something from my youth, um, wait, is he not talking about nerd related? I'm reading the
I
question
think it
back
could
right
be
now.
anything. Yeah.
Oh no, like I would. I mean, if we're talking media, as far as like bring it back, that I would enjoy now, it would be Savage Dragon. If I was able to make it to my standards, like I said, it would be Mighty Max or Centurions. Um, but if we're gonna talk about from a not specific type of thing, one thing I would love to bring back is um TV shows that are not story arc based. So like immediately when I reread the question, I was thinking of like I can just throw on Hercules and like
Mm,
watch it and it didn't feel episodic. Like there's a you show up, there's a plot to that episode, and then the plot ends, and you enjoyed it. Um, so I feel like if I could bring back something from my youth into current day and age, it's non-episodic TV where, or maybe it would be non-episodic because episodic means you have to watch all the episodes. So non
or
that
continuous. Would it be continuous
no story arc. Like
episode?
you just
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
throw it on. A random episode is on TV, and you can enjoy it without knowing the whole storyline.
Yeah, I think everything has become that way. And I know some people will blame Marvel for that, which I think is kind of stupid because there was stuff that was episodic before the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah.
Universe became a huge thing. So, no, you can't blame the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Marvel is cinema, by the way.
Oh, I'm trying to think of
Had
what
to
would
get
be
that
the
shot in there.
catalyst. I have a I've not emailed him yet. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. Now that we're talking, um, Samurai Jack is probably the first show I watched that had one storyline that continued throughout. So I'm going to blame Samurai Jack for the fact that we have single story arcs that last for more than a season.
Oh, what a good show too.
Such a good show.
Dre, I have a question for Archer. When you witnessed loner nerd culture at a young age, did that make you rethink letting your nerd flag fly?
Definitely. So like I said, one of the things I used to say actually was I'm a nerd, not a geek. And I think that when I gave the example earlier about Gamers Club, I thought Gamers Club was too far. I thought the Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments were too far. I wanted to be a nerd, but have the ability to be a nerd with other nerds. And maybe even that could be the catalyst of what nerd affiliated is. Like, you know, when I came up with the name nerd affiliated, it was like, oh, other people could be nerds or at least affiliated to being a nerd because they have their own nerddoms to be around. So yeah, that could be the catalyst for that unintentionally. But I'm sorry, I'm just like rereading it. Uh, it doesn't make me rethink it. I just think that I for me being a nerd, you still have to be to be to be good at being a nerd, you still have to be social. I guess is the best way to say it. Because like you can be a nerd who does your own thing, but like, are you able to enjoy being a nerd if you can't share that? I don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't think you can either.
Because like
All right,
even to your examples, like you drove around, or even to the smallest reference point, like at Blockbuster, you talk to another person about a movie.
correct.
So if you're the only one that's seen that movie and can talk about it, that's boring.
Yeah, and that's well. Just before we get to this question, that was so interesting fact. If people didn't know this, and if you worked at Blockbuster, you would know this. So, Boondock Saints, which is universally
Mm.
loved, was a
Except by
Blockbuster
me.
exclusive movie, except for you. Was a Blockbuster exclusive movie, and usually those were just straight to video. They were just like
Right.
BC rated movies. Because I remember this, I'll remember this forever. Remember we got like 100 copies of that movie, and I'm like, what is this? Why did we get so many of this movie? I took it home because we got free rentals every week. Took it
Mhm.
home, watched it, and I was blown away. I was like, holy crap, this is so good.
Mhm.
It comes out and people are just like not renting it. And then had one customer that came in frequently, like, hey, will you set aside a bunch of movies I should rent? Because I don't have time to like look through. I'm like, yeah, sure. Pull aside 7 movies, put them to the side. And he's like, just check them out and I'll watch them, whatever. And then he was just comes back and he's like, hands me that one movie. He puts everything else in the Dropbox, comes in to hand me that one movie. He's all, thank you. I'm all, thank you. What? He's all, thank you for this movie. And I was like, oh, I'm all, oh, you like it? He's all, awesome. What else can you recommend to me? He's like, I
Mhm.
want to come in every week and I want you to recommend 7 movies. And I was like, oh, okay. It became a thing where he told everybody in his neighborhood, everyone would come and see me or wait for me to come to work to have me recommend movies. I was like, my taste is probably not going to be you guys' taste, but hey, whatever. And it was just weird. It was consistent, and everyone just like, the hell, why do you have this line of people waiting for you every freaking day? Oh, I
Yes.
don't know. Like, I suggested one movie, and it just snowballed into this, all based off Boondock Saints. Imagine
I mean,
that.
and it's so it's funny is the reason I always bring that movie up is I live in Boston now, which
Yeah,
obviously the movie.
right.
Um the movie Boondock Saints fits into a file cabinet where I have a bunch of folders, and it's things I hate because the people who loved it at a certain point in my life, they loved it. So Boondock Saints, 311, Sublime, like Pirates of the
Oh,
Caribbean, all things I
311.
hate because of the people around my life when those things were coming out.
The
So
Crow,
The Crow.
311,
No,
Boondock
no, I
Saints.
love Dennis. Dennis, shout out to Dennis Rodriguez. So
Uh,
w- with Boondock Saints, I feel like if I saw that independently of the people around me who loved it, I would have loved that movie for sure. But also, you reminded me that there's a lot of people out there who would say that like, oh, movie influencers or TV influencers are not like they're not really a thing anymore. Like it's not, and I'm like, no, it's still very much a thing. Like people will still see somebody say something about a thing and take the word for it. And in simplest terms, for those who remember, it's the guy at Blockbuster. Like everybody had a reference point pre-internet that if that person told you, check this one out, you gave it a second look. You gave it a third look. You were like, I'm gonna grab that and just because so far they've been hitting. And to the Collider comment, to IGN, to GameSpot, at some point in time, they were all that thing. And then
Right.
at some point, it gets polluted or it gets corrupt, and then you can't trust it anymore. So we go to the fandom menace people who are like, oh, this is woke, this is whatever. Avoid it until you realize, oh, they're wrong. I should give that a shot.
Yeah. It's like a whole nother can
Yeah.
of worms that I could
Sorry.
definitely talk and get in. No, that's cool. I think we can do this again and talk
Mhm.
about this, but I'll bring this up and then we'll discuss it off chat or off the stream. Do you feel like I feel like the TikTok generation, not shading some of these guys, because I know a lot of people love Soups and Straw Hat
Mm.
Goofy and all those guys.
Mhm.
Because I am friends with somebody that's an actual like I guess pundit and someone actually is a journalist that does the
Mhm.
movie stuff.
Mhm.
And I agree with her because I feel like that TikTok generation of their opinions and because they're got big off of TikTok, they're ruining how movies are reviewed.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
look at Superman not even out, and it already people want to love to hate it, and it's not even out yet.
Yeah.
So that generation, not saying that those people aren't good people, but I feel like she's right. Like it's just their love for movies. I get it, but their opinions and what they're saying is ruining the actual true reviews for movies that I feel like should be reviewed higher. Not saying like Captain America should have been reviewed higher. I think everyone blanket statement can say it was reviewed really badly, but you go to
Mhm.
see it and it was just a fun film. That's what I wanted. I don't need someone to tell me that's paid from somebody like, oh, it's trash, don't go see it.
Right.
And I feel like that TikTok generation or YouTube generation of people have ruined movie reviews. But that's a whole different story. I feel like we can go on a whole new topic. So let's talk about that at another time. We can do it on yours. We can do it here. It doesn't matter. But I want you to think about that. Let's figure something out. Last question from JJ. I get what you mean. Nerd kind of reminds me of Collider. It was getting big until someone with a lot of money bought it and messed it up. Yes, 100% agree.
Yeah. So John Campea, I put him into the category of Straw Hat Goofy, where there are people who I had a perception of, and I met Straw Hat at Comic Con this past year, and like I've DM'd him from time to time. Like I'm just anybody else who's in his DMs, I'm sure. Um, I've said it on my streams a bunch where I'm sorry I keep repeating the phrase. Like if I'm invited to something, I have been compromised. And
Mm,
what has happened with the influencer reviewer is they get invited to things early, but there's still review embargoes in place. So they're gonna post about being there and in an exciting way because they're happy to be there, but it at times gives the impression of a false review because, whoa, I'm like, check me out. I'm here with Anthony Mackie at Captain America, whatever. So you think that that means it's a good movie, and then after the movie's out, the review drops, it gets buried in the algorithm, and in the review they're like, "Oh, it was actually a shitty movie," and you miss it. So the perception is everything's great until you kind of like dig through and you're like, "Oh, that actually was not good." So even with John Campea with Collider, you know, I've given John Campea a lot of shit on my channel, but
Yes, you have.
I have. But as I've listened to more John Campea, I'm like, oh, okay, so like you get early access to things, and that's what the algorithm pushes. But what the algorithm never shows me is when you actually give a review, because at that point I don't care anymore. There's like a million reviews out.
Right.
So I try to like now decipher between, are they just happy to be there, or is there a review here?
Yeah, I feel like, for example, I'll before we end this, for example, the Crow remake from last year, 2024.
Yeah.
I went and seen it. Not a great film. It's definitely
No.
not a Crow film. It was just okay. Like, wouldn't say it was terrible. I just rewatched it yesterday actually, and rewatching it yesterday, I was like, oh, so now a year out, well, not even a year out, year later, it's more like it's not really an action movie. I was like, man, this is way more dramatic than I really remember it being. And I was like, okay, so this is more of like a dramatized, like reimagining. And the perception from when I read about it was just be more close to the source material from the comic. And it was a TV show at one point with Paramount on Paramount Plus, or whatever it's
Mhm.
called. And then they decided they didn't want it. So then they got sold, and then it became a movie. And I was just like, okay, well, hope Bill Skarsgård in it. I mean, he's in it. All his movies are pretty good. He does weird shit. All his characters are weird, so it might be good. And I went in, not really expecting much, and I was like, it was okay.
Yeah.
Those TikTok influencers were paid to say it was so great. They got invited to this party and stuff, and I was just like, I think that's kind of like even before then. That at that point, I was just like, I was turned off by
Yeah.
any of those people telling me anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
what you're telling me is all bullshit because you're paid to tell me it's either good or bad.
Yeah.
I'm always the type anyway that I'm gonna go see a movie and judge it on my own. And that's how you should go into a movie instead of going off of Rotten Tomatoes or someone else. Just go watch the movie. Try to keep the movie theater business in business, and go have an opinion on your own instead of going on based off someone else's, like Snow White, for example. Seen it, not terrible, not great, same thing. Everyone's just trashing that movie because
Yeah.
of two people, two women, kind of a different story in a sense, but they're very outspoken, and it was just automatically, oh, this movie's trash. It's terrible.
We can definitely do another episode talking about that, because
Yeah.
that I find that whole thing interesting. But what I will say specifically to The Crow is it's an issue I've seen with other movies where my red flag on the play is influencers are allowed to appear or come to an event, but the review embargo is not lifted until like the Thursday before the movie comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, with The Crow, that was a bigger red flag than any negative
Oh, for
review.
sure.
Knowing as an insider, because I consider anybody who looks up this information as an insider, like as somebody who's somebody who like seeks this information, learning that a review embargo has lifted at 7 p.m. on a Thursday for a movie tells me you are hiding something. This is not good. And everybody who had a good time at your premiere probably had to say they had a good time,
Oh,
because you
for sure.
otherwise would like delete their credentials to come to any other premieres for your studio.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it doesn't, not even just that movie. Any movie that has a review embargo lift an hour before the movie is showing on a
It's
Thursday
bad.
night,
It's bad.
it's usually pretty bad. It's a bad sign.
Craven did the same thing.
Oh yeah, and I literally just watched that movie on Netflix, and it's by far one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Like to a point where towards the end, I don't. Have you seen Craven yet?
No desire.
You should watch it just because it's so bad. But there's a point towards the end when he's fighting the rhino. You see this car tumbling, and I literally paused it, and I was like, "Wait, did I just see that right?" Rewound it and paused it, and I was like, "They literally showed green screen in this movie still? Like, what the fuck?" Well, this is how bad this movie is. Let alone the rhino supposed to be this big giant dude, and he's like huge up top, skinny legs, and freaking slacks. I was like, okay. I I was so disappointed because I wanted that movie to be good, and hearing how bad it was, I'm like, it's pretty bad then. But watching it and seeing that part with the green screen, like rolling, and then you just see flat green, and I was like, oh my god. Well, this may be worse than Madam Web, and Madam Web is terrible.
17
I
they
was
did.
like, this makes Morbius look that much better.
You know, I have not seen any of the Venom movies.
First one is probably the only one that's decent. Like, I don't think all that good. I think Venom is just fun. It's just a fun movie. The
Mhm.
last one was definitely a lot better than the second one. The second one was too short, and they should have just waited to use Carnage until the third one. But if you're gonna watch a guilty pleasure series of films, that would be it. Venom would be that would be the guilty
Okay.
pleasure. So
All of them
definitely
make money
watch
by the
them. Yeah, definitely watch them. Report back to me tomorrow. No, I was kidding. But
they all of those movies except for Madam Web have made money, so it's like and Craven. But
right.
when people are like, oh, they're just like, why are they doing this? Blah blah blah. I'm like, people still casually go see those movies.
Well, yeah, Venom's huge. Like Venom's like one of the most popular villains from Spider-Man lore.
Yeah,
So
and
of
every
course it's
one
gonna
of
make
his movies
money.
made money.
Yeah, every single one of them, regardless if they're bad or not,
Yep.
you're still gonna make money because he's attached to Spider-Man, and that's what people will remember him from. Are they great movies? No. Are they entertaining? Definitely entertaining. But yeah, they're not great. But yeah,
No.
Craven. If I was to say of all time worst movies I've ever seen in my life, that would be at the very top of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Like it was so bad. I was like, wow, this movie is really that bad. This is sad because I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. And you can tell that he tried really hard in that movie, and everyone else was just laughable at this point.
I'm gonna let you continue
So
doing whatever your plan is for the end of the show as I think about the worst movie I've seen in my entire life.
I recommend you watch Craven, and you'll probably put that in your list of the worst movies I've ever seen in your entire life.
Will do.
All right. Well, this is extended, and that's totally fine. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you, my friend. So before we go, as you do on every one of your shows, I want you to plug yourself. Shoot your shit.
Yeah. Again, huge fan, obviously, and I appreciate you allowing me to be on as the first guest on this new series of shows you have rolling out. Um, nerdaffiliated.com. You can find links to our merch, podcasts, the latest clips, all that fun stuff. You can get yourself our new Outlaw collection that just dropped, a la Daredevil. And if you're into the Ghostbusters side of things, therealnerdbusters.com or the Real Nerdbusters on Instagram, you can find us over there if you want to talk specifically about Ghostbusters. But yeah, more reviews coming out, more unboxings, comic reviews, all that fun stuff will be dropping on the channel. So um, make sure you subscribe for that. And if you want more real time memes and reviews, we're very active on TikTok and very active on Instagram.
Yeah, that is true. And every one of the channels, but I did miss one, are all linked in the description. So that's all in there.
I have too
You're
many.
welcome. Yep, you do. And I'm like, so do I. So yeah, if you are now watching this, have never seen Hey Archer, Nerd Affiliated, links are all down in the description. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Go click them, subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do. get this guy some money so he can raise his kids. And
Morbius
that
is
is
the worst movie I've
tonight.
ever seen.
oh, wait until you watch Crazy.
Oh, sorry.
Change your mind.
Sorry. New Mutants is the
Oh,
worst
God.
nerdy movie I've ever seen.
I actually like that movie.
Oh,
Hot take.
guess I gotta
Hot
come back
take.
on. I guess I gotta come back on.
I like that shit. I like that movie. But yeah, thank you for being on. Appreciate you being here, and we'll continue on another episode, maybe next week. I don't have nothing Friday, so maybe Friday. Yeah, all the links for all his channels and Instagrams and TikToks are in the description. Go follow, subscribe to Nerd Affiliated, Book of Archer, his photography, which I didn't get to get into.
Yeah.
So go follow him, Nerd Affiliated, Ghostbuster stuff. Do that today, right now. If you're new watching this, if you're watching it later, go do it. You can follow me, go buy his merch. My new shirt right here is up. So grab that if you need. But that is it. Tomorrow night, we'll have The Man Collects, Chris. Like I think I mentioned this earlier. So The Man Collects, Art G, Mike, AZ Toy Hunters. Friday is open, so I may just do an open thing. Maybe JJ, if he's not too busy, maybe I'll just throw him on here.
JJ,
if not, then we'll
get back on
we'll discuss
the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we'll have him on and we'll discuss movies on Friday. And then on Saturday, I usually do No Shield with Raphael Stahaman. So go watch that. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you again. And peace out, guys.
Peace.
Subscribe.